All right, good morning, nerds. Today's video is on how to do a build of your game that you can either share with your friends and they can play it at home, or just be able to turn it in. For example, and this video is slightly aimed more towards my students in my day classes. But if you're a home user, there is definitely some. The tutorial will help you do this, but I am going to be making some references to other stuff like turning it on Canvas and stuff that might not apply to you. So apologies, but the information is still good for you if you're just trying to share your game with your friends. So the other thing I want to call out is I'm sure that most of the people watching this video will probably be doing their video or doing their work on a Windows machine. Including my students. So obviously here, if you can see on my desktop and everything, I am using a Mac. Things are going to be just a little bit different, but I will walk through the changes and what those look like on your system as well. So I'll kind of talk through the Windows parts as best I can. So the very, very first thing that we want to do here is, and this is me doing the FPS tutorial, but it doesn't really matter what project you're doing, as long as it's complete, or it's what I'm going to call shippable. Like when I play it, it runs, that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do here first is I'm just going to kind of test, hey, look, my game is kind of working the way I think it should be working. Things are responding. Look, I can turn, hooray. So it works. So we're going to go ahead and stop. But we do want to do that test run validation, make sure that we don't have any bugs in our console. Errors are going to be really, really messy at this point, so we want to make sure that we're not having any. So once we've got that done, again, and this is where things are going to start to deviate a little bit. We're going to go to the File menu. If this is your first time doing a build, which it probably is since you're watching the video, you definitely want to use build settings. If you have already built, if your last build was for the same target operating system as what you're trying to do now, it is safe to do build and run, but that only works if you've already built it and it was your last build. So for example, I do a lot of mobile. If the last thing I built was Android and I want to build for Android again, build and run is fantastic. But if I want to switch to iOS, when I make the switch, I still want to do it manually through build settings, and that's what I'm going to be teaching you here in a second, that first time after the switch. And then I can do build and run from there. But then if I want to switch it back to Android, I need to do it through build settings and do a build in build settings. And I realize that's a lot of information and most of it doesn't apply to most of the people listening to this, but build and run is a pretty good way to go if you've already done it before on this project. And you're just I'm going to say re-releasing it. Hey, I made some updates. I want to push it again, kinds of things. Build and run is fantastic for that. So what we're going to do is we do need to do it the slow way since this is our first time. So we're going to do build settings. And yours is going to look very, very similar to this. And actually, the way I have this one configured right now is what you want to see. I have PC, Mac, Linux standalone. You may not have all of those words in there. It might just be PC standalone. It depends on which modules for Unity you've installed, but as long as you're seeing PC, you're probably good. Or if you're on a Mac user, as long as you're seeing Mac, you're probably good. Your target platform, again, if you're on a Windows computer, you want it to be Windows, and architecture should be x86_64, or at least something very, very similar. I'm not 100% positive that that's the exact thing it says in Windows, if you're doing the Windows version of Unity, but it should be something pretty darn close to that. And then we're just going to leave everything else unchecked. So this is pretty good. However, I'm going to change this on mine. I'm going to change it over to Mac because then I can actually do my test builds and stuff like that. So I'm going to switch mine over to Mac, but you probably should not. So I'm going to switch to Mac OS, which, okay, it is trying to update right now. And if you're doing this on a Mac, my suggestion would be Intel 64-bit plus Apple Silicon, unless you have features that don't work on an M1 processor, in which case you want to just do the 64-bit. Honestly, the Silicon processor is a little touchy, especially in Unity. I had some really big troubles compiling with certain plugins, specifically the Google Firebase plugins were a complete and total nightmare, and pretty much anything that uses CocoaPods is a mess on an Apple Silicon chip. So just a warning, if you're experimenting with those things, definitely stick with those Intel processors. There is some workarounds, but they are super messy. So the 64-bit chip is definitely recommended if you're doing anything involving CocoaPods. Basic Unity is probably okay on Silicon. So, okay, so now I've got all my stuff set up. Again, if you're on a Windows machine, you do want to leave that Windows x86 64 settings, but this is going to be good for me on my Mac. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on this build and run folder. And again, the first time we do this, it's going to bring up a dialog box, and it should be bringing that up. Where are you? It should be here. It always happens when we're trying to do the tutorials. There it goes. Okay, and again, my box looks a little bit different than yours, so I'm going to kind of walk through. I have my projects here, so I've got my FPS YouTube tutorial, and specifically, we should see assets, FPS. Actually, I have FPS Win in here already, and I actually have a Mac build in here already. So I'm just gonna. You should not follow along with this, but I'm gonna go ahead and delete that so that way I can start over. So we're gonna delete that folder. Oh, it's not letting me do that from here. Okay, move to trash. Okay, don't follow along with that last step. I'm just doing it so that way I can actually re-demonstrate this. So I've got my folders are empty here. I don't have it. What I would definitely be doing is separating out which folders you want to create. So again, I'm looking to make sure I've got my assets folder here, my library logs, objects, packages, project settings. This is what my folder should look like. You won't have this FPS Win folder. That's one that I created. Actually, I'm just going to delete that one while I'm here too. Hey, look at that. It's gone. So you won't have that either. If you do have it, it's okay, but you probably won't. And so now I've got those both in here. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to create a new folder, and you definitely want to do that. Otherwise, you're going to have some really big messes. So I'm going to make sure I'm in my main folder. So YouTube tutorial, and I can see these other things inside of it. Again, the Windows layout will be a little bit different. And I'm going to click the new folder button, which in Windows is kind of up in here somewhere. So I'm going to click on new folder. In a Mac, it does a pop-up. I'm going to name this Mac build. But if you're in a PC, you just type it directly in the folder name right here, and you would definitely want to call that WinBuild instead. So like for Windows build. And the exact name is not specifically necessary, but as you could see, I had FPS Win up there earlier. It's going to help you differentiate. You might think, oh, I'm only ever going to build this thing on this one platform ever. And then later on, you're going to change your mind, and then your folder hierarchies are going to get confusing. So I always do Mac build, Win build, iOS build, Android build. If I ever built for a TiVo, I could do TiVo build or PS4 build or PS12 build, because they'll probably be on PS12 by the time I make a PlayStation game. Whatever the current version of Xbox's inability to number sequentially is called, but I could label all of those. So I'm going to call mine Mac build because that's easy. And if you're on a Windows machine, you can just simply click on your WinBuild folder, and instead of save, you're going to have a choose folder option. Go ahead and click on that now. If you're on a Mac, what you're going to need to do is also give the file name a name. So I'm going to call mine FPS tutorial. And that's the file name that will actually appear on the game. So I'm going to go ahead and click save. That will be taking me to this spot where it's actually going to build my project. Depending on what plugins you have and stuff, this can take a while or it can go relatively quickly. And then you're going to see it will launch your game, which I'm not sure if this is actually appearing on my screen right now. But in case it is, I'm going to kind of quickly just play my game and kind of test things. Hey, look, they work. And if all you're seeing is a black screen right now, or not seeing my screen overlay because I'm not really sure what's going to show up on the video part of it, don't worry about that. And then you can close that game by doing Alt F4 if you're on a Mac, or on Windows, or Control Apple or Control Option Escape will allow you to do that on a Mac, and that doesn't seem to want to work for me. So I just did a swipe, and we'll figure that out later. Then I can right click over here and say quit. So I got out of it. Basically what you do want to do though is just play that game just long enough to get a decent test out of it. And again, I'm not sure if you guys were able to see that or not, but it did show up on my screen. I was able to kind of play it for a second. Once you've done that, so you have a successful build. Sometimes it pops up the build folder. It seems to do that if I do Android builds, but it doesn't seem to do it on anything else. But I'm going to go ahead and close this build settings window. And now we need to find that so we can compress it. And there's a lot of ways you can do it. You can do searches and things like that. For me, the fastest way, though, is to simply go into my project area here, into my assets, find some empty space. I'm going to right click. And I'm going to click on, if you're in a Mac, you're going to want to click Reveal in Finder. If you're on a PC, you're going to want to click Show in Explorer. They both do the exact same thing, so I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And what this is going to do is this is going to take you to your assets folder. But if you back up a little bit, and again, the folder layout is a little bit different, but I always go the folder before assets. So like up here, you're going to see like something and then assets and then another folder. You want the one that's immediately before assets. So for me, it would be FPS YouTube tutorial. On your system, it might be something different. It'll be whatever your project folder is. But if we click on that, now in my tree hierarchy, I can see that Mac build folder, and you should be seeing your Windows build folder. And that's where we want to be. And again, this is going to be a little different for you guys, but I'm going to right click. If you're on a Mac, you're just simply going to go down here and say compress Mac build. If you're on a Windows machine, there will be a send to, and it'll be about kind of where this share folder is here, but it'll say send to, and it'll have the little arrow. And when you click on that, one of your options here, and obviously like I don't have that menu, but one of your options will be compressed zipped folder. And that's going to be the one you want to click on. So for me on a Mac, I'm going to click on compressed Mac build. If you're on a Windows machine, you're going to find it send to, not share, send to, but over here, and it's the second option. So it would be where my messages button is, but it would say compressed zipped folder. Okay, so we're going to click on that. So I'm going to click on compressed. It's going to do its compression, which doesn't usually take too long. And that will generate a zip file. And again, on Windows, your icon is going to be somewhat different, but it'll have the same name as the folder, and it will end with .zip. So now this is a full distributable package. So for example, if you're one of my students and trying to figure out how to just turn in your stupid assignment, this folder, you drag it into the assignment on Canvas, and that's how you turn it in. Easy, you're done. There's a file, it'll be like, just drag the file into this space. Literally drag it, drop it, let it go, and you're done. If you're here because you want to learn how to share your project with someone else, you can just email them or Google Share or whatever your file, use a flash drive, whatever. Get them this zip file. If they get it, they can now use your game. And what they're going to do is kind of the opposite. They're going to take this zip folder and they're going to put it somewhere on their computer. So I've just put it here on my desktop. And they're going to need to uncompress it. Now, if they're on a Mac, they can simply double click it. If they're on a Windows machine, you're going to right click, and one of your options will be extract all. And it'll give you a couple things to click next on. So it's a wizard, I think is the official term, but you click through it, you just next, and it will uncompress that folder. But if you're on a Mac like me, you can just double click on it. That's going to uncompress, and you're going to see a folder kind of right next to it. And you can do this on a desktop. You can do it in a C drive. You can do it kind of wherever you want. So I'm going to double click on that folder. In a Windows machine, so for me, I have FPS tutorial. That's the only thing there, and that's because a Mac build is going to put all of your assets and everything into one executable. There are actually some tools where you can open that out. It's kind of a specialized kind of a folder, I guess. But there are some tools you can use that would actually allow you to see the contents there, and it would look more like the Windows build. In Windows, you're going to have 4 to 6 different things in here. There's going to be a couple of folders. There's going to be like a Unity error program. I think that just manages error logs. I'm not quite sure what that one does. And then you're actually going to have a file that is something along the lines of, your project name, in my case, FPS tutorial.exe, which would be the thing that you would click on to play it. In my case, I can just click on FPS tutorial. And again, I'm not terribly certain that this is going to show up on your guys' videos. I guess I'll find out when I record, but it would allow you to play your game. Again, I've already tested it, so I'm just going to go ahead and quit it. And that's it. That's how you do your zip files. So that's it for this. And I'm out of prep period, so I'm going to go ahead and close this. So in closing, as always, if you enjoyed this video or you found it useful, please click like and subscribe. And no matter what, as we always say in closing, please keep on creating. Thanks and have a great day.